Hello everyone, it's Azim. It's time to go over some basic anatomical terms. Let's go over directions of the human body. So when we stand erect with feet forward, face forward, but with the palms facing forward, both palms at our sides facing forward, that would be called anatomical position. And in anatomical position, that's how we come up with all these other directional terms, because we need a frame of reference. Otherwise, say if the hand is down here or if the hand is up here, which way is up? There's no real way to say. So we just have to come up with an agreed upon frame of reference, and that's anatomical position. If you're in anatomical position and you're lying on your face down, then you're in a prone position. If you're lying on your back face up, that's a supine position. The front of the body, anything facing forward in anatomical position, that's called the anterior side. Because our stomach is also on the anterior side, it's also called ventral. So anterior and ventral for humans are synonymous. The back side, the posterior, this is posterior. The back side is posterior. Anterior, posterior. If we want to talk about vertical directions, towards the head is superior, towards the feet is inferior. Superior is above, inferior is below. Once again, these terms are all relative, so when we describe something, it's one thing related to another. So for example, if we're talking about the pectoral muscle and the latissimus dorsi, which is on the back, we would say that the pectoralis muscle is anterior to the latissimus dorsi, while the latissimus dorsi is posterior to the pectoralis muscle. Similarly, if we want to talk about inferior and superior, we can say that the heart, which is deep to here, the heart is superior to the stomach, while the stomach is inferior to the heart. So that's anterior, posterior, and superior, inferior. When we're referring to the torso, we can also use these terms called medial and lateral. Medial would be towards the midline, lateral would be towards the outside on either side. So let's say we're talking about the umbilical cord, the umbilical region, the belly button, versus this oblique muscle. The umbilical region is medial to the oblique muscle, while the oblique muscle is lateral to the umbilical region. In some cases, we want to describe even more specifically the relation of one thing to two other things. So you can see that there's 1, 2, 3 muscles here. This middle muscle is in between these other two. If we're just talking about this muscle compared to this muscle is medial to this one, while this one is lateral to this one. So this is a medial muscle, this is a lateral muscle. So what do we call this one? The word for in between would be intermediate. We would say this muscle is intermediate to these two. So there needs to be comparison between two other things. This one is intermediate to these two. If we want to talk about something on the arms or legs, on appendages, we need to speak about, we can't just use superior and inferior, because like I said before, right now the hand is down, so technically that's inferior, but over here the hand is up, so that's superior. So which one is it? It can change all the time because we've got movable joints. So using superior and inferior for appendages is not the best thing to do. When referring to things along an appendage, what we want to do is, if it's towards the joint, towards the torso, that's proximal. If it's away from it, if it's towards the fingers or toes, that's distal. So for example, the elbow compared to the wrist, the elbow is proximal to the wrist, while the wrist is distal to the elbow. We can also talk about things that are deeper in a tissue. After all, our bodies are three-dimensional. We're not just two-dimensional things. So, run and get another model. Here is a model of skin. If we want to look at our skin, if this is the surface of our skin, towards the surface of something is superficial, deeper in a tissue is deep. So let's say we're looking at this gland. This gland is deep to this surface, while this surface is superficial to this gland. Another example, we show some muscles on the back. In this, the way that this model has been made, we're showing some muscles here. This is the trapezius. If we cut and remove this muscle, we'll see more muscles underneath. So this is a superficial dissection. This is a deep dissection. The trapezius is superficial to these rhomboids. The rhomboids are deep to this trapezius. If we're talking about spinal cord, the brain and spinal cord, the nervous system, because our brain and spinal cord kind of take an angle, here's the front of our cross and then down, because of that bend, it's easier to refer to towards the front of the brain or towards the tail of the spinal cord as just part of one neuraxis. Towards the front of the brain, that's called rostral. Towards the tail of the spinal cord, that's called caudal. Cauda means tail, so it's towards the tail end of the spinal cord. One other directional term that we can use, it's mostly used when we're talking about the sensation and movement, when we're talking about the nervous system, is, for instance, if we want to control our right hand, it's actually done from signals starting in the left brain. So the left brain controls the right hand. The term for that is contralateral. We have contralateral control. Or let's say I feel pain in my left leg. Where would that be processed? That would be processed in my right brain. Again, that's contralateral. In some cases, though, like especially for facial areas, you might feel it on the same side. There might be transmission pathways on the same side. If it's on the same side from wherever to wherever, that would be ipsilateral. So contralateral, contra means against, ipsilateral is the same side.